Hello friends, welcome back. We are continuing our study in the power of awareness, and today's subject is attitude. Do you have relationships that you'd like to improve? Do you believe that your attitude, not theirs, but your attitude can completely shift and even change beyond improve a relationship with someone else? Be it a coworker, your boss, that guy at work, right? A family member, one of your children, perhaps one of your teenage children, right? Their attitude, your relationship with them. Another family member, perhaps your partner, right? People you deal with in business. Do you believe that your attitude can make a difference? I'm going to show you how you can actually change the relationship for the better. Specifically, how to do it. Again, it's been said that your attitude determines your altitude, your accomplishments, your relationships. But we're going to hone in specifically on relationships particularly. You know, there was a study done years ago at Dartmouth University where they determined the importance of attitude, okay? What they came up with was this after their study. Notice what they said here. What you see when you look at something depends not so much on what is there as on the assumption you make when you look at it. Again, it depends not so much on what is there, what is apparent, what seems is, right? As it depends on the assumption you make when you look at the situation, your attitude toward it. Neville Goddard, in The Power of Awareness, is where we're going to pick up here because we're continuing our study of the power of awareness and its application and how you can specifically use it to improve and change your life. Okay? Today's subject, attitude. In chapter 7, which is entitled Attitude, Neville gives an amazing story in his relationship with one of his clients. He had a client who came to him, and he was coaching, and she said that her relationship with her boss was terrible. He didn't respect her, and he was rude to her. He didn't appreciate the work that she was doing. She was a designer, okay? And he was the manager, or her boss, you could say. All right? Let's take a look at that story, and I'm going to show you how she changed through the advice of Neville Goddard. Her relationship changed and flipped completely from a poor relationship to a great relationship. All right? So here's what her situation was. The costume designer, Neville relates, described to me her difficulties in working with a prominent theatrical producer. She was convinced he unjustly criticized and rejected her best work, and that often he was deliberately rude and unfair to her. Do you have somebody in your life like that? I know most of us have. Upon hearing her story, Neville explained that if she found the other rude and unfair, notice this part, it was a sure sign that she herself was wanting or lacking, and that it was not the producer or her boss, right, but herself that was in need of a new attitude. That's pretty strong language. In other words, he was saying it was actually her fault and not his. Hang on with me. You'll see exactly how it applies. So here's what Neville advised her. He told her that the power of this law of assumption and its practical application could be discovered only through experience, only by assuming that the situation was already what she wanted. So what would be the ideal situation? In her case, it would be her having his respect, him respecting her and appreciating her work and being kind to her. In spite of the fact that maybe everybody there at work knew that he was, that he had that attitude, that he was difficult to deal with. In fact, you might have started a new job, or you might be working somewhere where everybody complains about their boss. They all know that he or she is a such and such, right? And you buy into that, along with the group think that this guy or this woman is tough to work for, and they always give the employees problems. You buy into that. And so you perpetuate it by that attitude. Okay? Here's what happened. Neville said that, again, that by assuming that the situation was already what she wanted, she could prove that she could bring about this change in her relationship that she desired. Big promise. He says there was no doubt but that she was mentally arguing with the producer, for others only echo that which we whisper to them in secret. Now, he went ahead and asked her, he says, if it was true or not that she talked to him mentally, silently complaining about him, right? And if so, what those conversations were like. Well, she actually went on to admit, right, that every morning on her way to the theater, on her way to work, she told him just what she thought of him. And she did it in a way that she wouldn't have dared to have said to him in person to his face. But she did it silently in her own inner talk or inner speech. The intensity and force of her mental arguments with him automatically established his behavior toward her. Do you believe that that's possible, that we're actually transferring our attitude to them and getting exactly what we believe to be true in our relationship with that person, with your boss, with your child, with your partner, with someone else in your life, a business associate? Do you believe that that's the case? That your attitude is reflected back to you in their attitude? Well, this is what is being established here. Through this advice, she began to realize that all of us carry on mental conversations. Who do we talk to most? Ourselves. But unfortunately, on most occasions, those conversations are argumentative. And he goes on to mention here that this is proven if you observe people passing by. So you can see that they're having a conversation with themselves, and you can see by the expression on their face that it's not a happy conversation. I used to live in New York City, and it's true when I lived in Las Vegas too, that you could be walking downtown or somewhere, and you can see somebody that they're actually talking to themselves. Sometimes they're talking to themselves out loud, which is a little scary. But often you can tell that they're having a conversation in themselves. Maybe they're waiting in a long line at the bank, and they're mumbling about how slow and incompetent the bankers are, and they just go over that problem and that situation in their head internally. And by the time they get up to the front, they are exasperated. They already have an attitude, and perhaps that teller, even though they're trained, they're going to take their good old time with you, aren't they? Their attitude is going to be reflected back to you. Now, here's what happened. When she realized what she'd been doing, having these negative conversations in her head with him, about him, she agreed to change her attitude. Not his, hers. So it started with her. She agreed to live this law, the law of assumption, assuming and believing what you want to believe as already true, in her relationship with that producer as a very happy one and satisfactory. To do this, she agreed that, here's the how. So, Robert, how do you do this? This is what she did based on the advice of Neville Goddard. And this is what I've done in my life. She agreed that before going to sleep at night, on her way to work, and at other intervals during the day. She would imagine that he had congratulated her on her fine designs, her work, and that she, in turn, had thanked him for his praise and kindness. To her great delight, guess what happened? She soon discovered for herself that her own attitude was the cause of all that befell her. The behavior of her employer, her boss, that producer, miraculously reversed itself. His attitude then changed. Her persistent assumption, right, that he cared about her, that he appreciated her, determined his attitude toward her. Years ago, I was working for an employer. When I started working there, I was told about her attitude. Watch out for the director because she's hard to deal with. She's not fair. She plays favorites. Yada, yada, yada. So I was told by my new fellow employees about this manager and how she was difficult to deal with. I didn't listen to that. In my own mind, I established a great relationship with her. I knew that she would love me. I knew that I was the best and she would love my work. That's what I established in my own mind with her before I ever spoke to her. In my relationship with her, guess what? I don't want to say I was her favorite, but I kind of was. I was employee of the month at the place that I worked. Yearly, I was won the employee of the year in that office. And it was for two reasons. One was, of course, because my actual work was excellent. But secondly, because I'd established such a beautiful rapport with her, because I believed in her, regardless of her station, her high station as a director, right? I even had that relationship with the owner of the hotel that I was working at in that situation, okay? The owner, let me just tell you what I was doing. I was actually a professional massage therapist at that time, which is a whole other story, another segment of my life, long before I became a coach and a teacher. But I was practicing the law of attraction and the law of assumption back then also. So I went into every situation believing I was the best, believing that my manager loved me, believing that I got along with my fellow employees, and believing that all of my clients were satisfied and happy. I established that long before it happened. That's the attitude I went in with, and that's the attitude I had every day. In fact, I had the attitude of another person that I worked for that had a great attitude. When you ask him how he was doing, you know what he would say? I'm doing fantastic, but you know what? It's getting better all the time. What? Absolutely. Our attitude actually changes how others mirror and reflect back to us in their relationship with us. How can you do this with maybe a teenager in your home or your partner? Exact same way. First, establish in your own mind, maybe even writing it out. What would you like that relationship to be like? Would you like to have respect, love, appreciation? Would you like them to see the best in you? You need to establish that you see the best in them, regardless of their attitude, regardless of what they've shown up to this point. What they've shown you up to this point has no bearing on the future relationship. So with my teenage children who are now thriving adults, wonderful, wonderful adults that I'm proud of, I established with them in my mind that they were going to be good, they were going to be successful, they were going to achieve in life what they wanted to achieve. And that was even through their tough teenage years when they weren't always showing that to me. Okay? I worked my way through it, and I always believed the best in them all the time, even when they made mistakes. I would verbally tell them, but I would more so mentally feel and believe and assume, expect the best from them. And that's what was reflected back to me. I've proven this in my own life time and time again. When I've met somebody with an attitude, I didn't let it affect me. What I do is I establish my attitude toward them, and guess what? In a matter of hours or days, their attitude toward me flips. And they are now treating me with respect. I now have a great relationship with them. Regardless of their poor relationship with somebody else, I've established that in my own assumption and expectation and belief. But Neville said again, the way you do this is you actually take that belief as already the situation. Believe that you already have that great relationship with them, right? Imagine what it would look like, what it would feel like, what your interchanges with them would be like. Then take it into your sleep. We have established why that's important in my previous videos on the law of assumption, which I encourage you to watch or rewatch. Why is it important to take it into your sleep? When you have a desire or a goal, in this case, a changed and improved relationship with someone, you take it into your sleep because you want to bring it into your subconscious level, because it's on the subconscious level that we are connected to telepathically, vibrationally, right? In tune with. We do that on a level from our subconscious. It's been proven by those such as Joe Dispenza, Bob Proctor, and many of the laws of attraction and the law of assumption with Neville Goddard, that by taking it into your sleep, what you're doing is you're going into alpha. All right? That's the meditative state that I've talked about in meditation. If you look at my excellent videos, I did a couple on meditation, right? When you go into that meditative state, the rest of your problems and everything else gradually begins to fade because you're focusing on what you want to believe. You might have to do this for a while, over and over, believing yourself to be that person in the relationship with the other, and you're visualizing it, you're seeing it as you fall asleep. You're bringing that into your sleep, and you're bringing it into your subconscious, where it's been proven and shown that 95% of what we reflect and do in the objective world comes from us from within, from subconsciously, right? From subjectively. So we need to affect that 95%. The way we do that is by bringing this meditation into our sleep. Now, excuse me. So we continue to do that during the day. Notice she said she would do it then while she was awake on the way to work. Again, she would continue to reflect on this great relationship she had with her manager, and at other intervals during the day. So at other times during her work day, she would again pause, take a moment, and imagine this great relationship that she had with the person she worked with. And guess what? By doing that repeatedly over a period of days and weeks, his attitude then echoed that back to her. It mirrored it back to her and reflected back to her, and it became his changed attitude. Notice, as this designer, by her controlled imagination, started the subtle change. It may have been subtle at first. It was a gradual effect on him in that relationship. She started the subtle change in her employer's mind, as we can do with our kids, our partner, others in our life. So can we, Neville says, by the control of our imagination and wisely directed feeling, solve our problems. You can actually solve your problems, again, having the attitude that will then determine your altitude, your relationships, in this case, right, with someone else. Often our most elaborate and original thoughts are determined by another. We may have had a wonderful mentor or person in our life that believed in us. They saw the best in us. Did you have someone like that? Did you have a teacher like that maybe in your life who always saw the best in you? And as a result, you became that person that they thought you would become? That's what happened with my children. They're absolutely amazing now. And they practice and believe in this law also. The law of expectation. So what do you expect in your life and your relationship? Develop it. Try this. Do me a favor. Try this for 1 week. Have you got an only child, partner, or business associate, or an employer, or someone else in your life that you'd like to see your relationship, their attitude toward you change? Change your attitude first toward them. Believe it. Meditate on it. Take it into your sleep. Repeat it on the way to work or in the morning and at various intervals throughout the day. Then do this again at night before sleep. Do this for 1 week straight, and I can guarantee you that out of the blue, seemingly, they will change their attitude with you, regardless of how they treat other people. Test it. I dare you, because you know what? I know it absolutely works. That's chapter 7 from The Power of Awareness. Do you have the book yet? Neville Goddard, The Power of Awareness. It's absolutely amazing. That was chapter 7. Next time we get into chapter 8 as we move on. Greater understanding and application of the power of imagination and the power of awareness. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you again real soon. And thanks for subscribing and being part of this channel. The best is yet to come. Do you believe that? 2024 is going to be an absolutely amazing year for all of us. Believe it, and you'll see it, and you'll experience it.